Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
From an F-150 in Cana, New York. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and your co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Friday's study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm here with Mara spinning the dials in the truck because our internet is weak. It's tough waking up, Kastuba, in the early in the morning. We caught ourselves complaining. We're like, this is such a pain in the neck, packing up everything, going out. But if you think about it, when we were growing up, what would it take to give class to 15,000 people? You'd have to start your own news channel to be an anchor person. We can all be anchor persons. It's pretty amazing. And I have to complain that I have to go a quarter mile down the road. I'm such a complainer.
No complaining, Raghunath.
Yeah, doesn't make you happy. Oh, Mara's got. Wait.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, Rag was acting like he was the one complaining, but in all reality, I was actually the one complaining about packing everything up.
Well, that's because she does all the packing up and setting up. So yeah,
Right.
we're gonna cut you some slack. Yeah.
Should we get right into things?
Sure. Let's get right into our nuggets, sir.
What you want to get right into the announcements?
Right into the announcements, sir.
Bhakti recovery group meetings today at 12:30 and 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we have an asana class with Josh Kane this morning at 10:30 a.m. for our Patreon members.
All right.
Everybody loves Josh's classes. Okay.
Who's the nugget from?
The nugget is from George Bernard Shaw.
Oh, yeah.
What did George Bernard Shaw do? He was just a writer?
He was a playwright.
He wrote Dr. Dolittle?
He wrote Dr. Dolittle? Yeah, he was a playwright. He wrote like 60 plays. Can you imagine that?
Oh, Eliza Doolittle? Someone put it on the board.
No, I'm telling you, he wrote over 60 plays.
Okay.
He's considered to be next to Shakespeare.
We want one with Doolittle in the title. Pygmalion?
Yeah, he
How did you get Doolittle out of that?
Nobody, you put the Doolittle in there.
Oh no, the Eliza Doolittle is the character of it. Okay.
That's from that other one. That's from Oliver or something. Oh, no, that's from the plane and the rain in Spain. Which one is that again?
I don't know.
The rain in Spain
know
lies
what you're
mainly on the
talking
plane.
about.
Eliza Doolittle.
Okay. I don't know.
Training her up to be a lady, proper lady. Someone knows what My Fair Lady. Yeah, thank you, Kylie.
All right, let's get into this.
He was a prolific playwright. He's considered like second only to like Shakespeare. The guy just
Really?
pumping him out. Yeah. Hear what he has to say, Raghunath.
Here's what he has to say. This is the true joy in life.
What?
Being used for purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one. Being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish, little clod of ailments and grievances. Ooh,
We're talking about
we were talking about complaining a moment ago.
and we were talking about We were talking about grievances yesterday. Remember when it said that you had to approach the Paramatma without grievance?
Oh yeah, that's interesting too. But I
Yeah.
was thinking about Mara being a force of nature, being a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances. No, she's not like that at all. Complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
That's
This is
we're
great.
so prone to fall into becoming a little clod of ailments and grievances.
Sure. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community. And as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it what I can. It is sort of a splendid torch which I have got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. What a nice way to. How do you get a good attitude like that? Is it
That's
something you work for? Are you born with it? Can you change it? If you got a bad attitude, can you change it? What do you think?
Well, I think I know very little about George Bernard Shaw. Um, I just did a little research on him. Now to have the kind of mind that can write 60 dramas in one lifetime,
Yeah,
I mean, it's like you're writing like 2 a year or something like that. That's,
never
you know,
did the
you
math.
have to
Yeah.
have a certain mind to be able to do that, like a certain peaceful mind, a certain kind of clarity. You know, my guess is that he was a very deep thinker. He penetrated layers of thought more than the average person, and he observed the world, and he came to this realization that, you know what, true joy, it's not from the senses enjoying external things. He got that, you know, he saw that, and he recognized that, you know, there's a higher purpose in life. I do not, well, I'm recognizing in myself and other people that we get in these loops of negative thoughts of just complaining about this and that, and really all that it does is make me miserable.
Mm.
And he said it's a privilege to actually what he says here is what was it, uh he said, I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community. Like, to me, you know, that's like, there are deeper levels of spiritual understanding, but like that's truth, you know, in other words,
Sure.
that like we're all connected,
My
right?
question to you is, are you born with that? Are you born with that?
Well,
What if you got a
well,
bad attitude and you know it?
I'm I'm not
Is it
saying that you're
something like
born
you
with
can
it.
change?
Definitely. Absolutely, we can change our attitudes. No
Yeah.
question about it. But we have to try to view life from different perspectives and
Mm.
reflect on those perspectives. And those, you know, I'm going to research this, Raghunath, but Satyananda Maharaj turned Gita Priya onto one of these TED Talks that had to do with how the mind reprograms itself, how the different synapses, you know, how the different connections within the brain, how they interlock, and you could only maintain so many connections,
Mm.
and then the process of reflection kind of like reconnects these synapses in different ways, and you literally change the way that you view the world, you know.
Mm.
And so to me it sounds like he had good insights, and it's this kind of insight that's harmonious with bhakti, with our bhakti philosophy, right? Joy
Sure.
is not coming from external sense stimulation. That's a like a facade of joy.
And you're not waiting for it. You're not waiting, and you don't feel like the world owes you.
Oh yeah,
You're actually making a conscious contribution to something bigger than yourself. Even that,
right.
just that sense of purpose is very powerful to wake up in the morning. I mean, a lot of times people
It's essential.
have nothing. They just survive. They are not in. If you say, "What are you into?" You're like, "I'm not into anything. I got kids. I just trying to survive." It's just like a survival game,
Yeah.
you know.
You know, I think, and this is why it's so important. You know, we had a great online get together with Radhanath Swami last night for the Sage Group leaders. By the way, this is like we're going in next week will be the last week of this segment of Sage Group meetings. There's like an 18-week segment.
How do people sign up for the new ones? First off, why don't
Well,
you explain what the Sage groups are briefly, and then how do you
Sage
sign up for the
Groups
next ones?
is if you listen to Wisdom of the Sages and you're like, this makes a lot of sense. This is exciting to me. I want to go deeper into this.
Do you have to be advanced in Bhakti? Can you be brand
No.
new? Can I listen to this? We got
You could be-
Boofish on the show. Boofish has listened to 3 episodes, 5
Bluefish-
episodes maybe.
Bluefish could get right into it.
Is
The
he
idea is that
qualified? Okay.
yeah, the idea is what you commit to is that I'm going to show up every week for a get together online with about 7 other people, small groups. Each group has a sage group leader that mostly it's not so much like teaching. It's more like they're just kind of facilitating the discussion.
Okay.
And the idea is that basically every week they get together and they discuss. We provide some notes from an episode from the previous week, generally.
Yeah.
That people can kind of get in. You know, that's kind of the basis of the conversation. But more than anything, it's not so much about study. It's more about having a forum where you can open up, share your thoughts, share your questions, your doubts, what you're going through on your practice of bhakti, hear from others, make some friends, lifelong friends, you know, connect with people, make some connections, which is an essential part of practicing bhakti. It really begins to go from theoretical into like, I'm living this now when you're engaged like that. So we're about to end one more week. Next week will be the last week of this segment. There'll be about a month break, and then we'll start another segment in June. And we'll be letting everybody know. You sign up on our website, and it'll all be there. You know, you go to Sage Groups on the Wisdom of the Sages website. So in any case,
Prabhu, this is like an essential part of life, is like getting together with people and just like sharing how you're feeling. It's like oftentimes we get together with people and we just complain, and a friend commiserates, and then I complain a little more, and then we just talk shit about something. And
excuse me?
Did I say a bad word on TV?
Careful, we got children.
Sorry. But anyway, my point is like, that's what friendship has becoming is it's like complaining and commiserating, and then they feed
like a little
that
clog.
Conversation with it sets up a clogged drain and a clogged head. But when you get to people who are saying, you know what, upgrade time. I want this to be a sacred group where I'm going to share my struggles without blaming anybody. Here's what I'm struggling with. You know, I've got a spouse that hurt me. I've got a financial problem I'm going through. I've got whatever it is. Here's how I'm feeling about it. Instead of blaming everybody, I come to this group and I just share. And there is a definitive positive effect. Not necessarily getting an answer for that, but just sharing in a group your emotions. A lot of times we've just lost touch with our emotions. We eat our emotions, we sex our emotions, we smoke our emotions, or we watch TV or shop our emotions. So that's as little as it sounds like, oh, get together with a group. It's huge. We get such positive feedback from this. And I'm giving you all the credit, Prabhu, because
I don't get the credit.
You started this.
Well,
You started this.
Anyway.
Sage group leaders.
But here's my point. Here's my point. Is that one of the next things we want to do, as hopefully if we can get ourselves organized and together, is that, you know, like say you're in a sage group and okay, I'm not just hearing about bhakti now. I'm beginning to talk about it. I have a little sangha. I want to make this a part of my life. Then you need some service, because if you don't have some purpose, right? That's what George Bernard Shaw is talking about here, right? He feels like he has a privilege. I have a privilege. It's my privilege to serve, you know. He said it's a sort of splendid torch, you know, like I'm moving forward doing something. And if you don't have that in life, then you really don't have so much to wake up for, you know. And that may be a lot. So much of it may be just how you take care of your family, you know, how you serve in the job that it may be that, you know. But here's the point, is that we need to have some. If we don't have some purpose that we wake up for in the morning, then we are very prone to become what George Bernard here calls a selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making me happy, you know. If we're not moving forward in a positive way, serving some noble purpose, we're very prone to these negative thought loops, and it just makes us miserable and other people miserable, so we got to find that purpose. We got to clarify that, and when you do that in the context of bhakti yoga, you're doing it in context of the highest truth. It's very, very powerful. It's life-changing. It's the real spirituality.
Well, I will say, going through on a regular basis, hearing Bhagavatam, it's basically keeping the car on the road as well. Because what can happen is you can be like, I have a noble truth. I'm raising my kids, or I'm working hard and I'm supporting my family. But we need like the mirror, using the Bhagavatam as sort of like a mirror, it's like a gold standard. It sort of directs the vehicle, because even within noble things like raising a family, things get sketchy. Things get,
Sure.
I'm around a lot of friends who are, their kids are growing up, and this is a peculiar feeling, because I mentioned a couple times, because it's their kids are growing up and they're moving out of the house, like they're teenagers and they're getting ready, and there's
That's
this next.
because your age group right now, your kids are all, so all your friends, it's happening not just to you but to all your friends.
It's happening to everybody, a bunch of people that I know, and it's confusing, and when they're small and they're dependent and they're really hanging on to you, and you look like them and they feed off you and they give you so much validation, and they're almost filling that position as God. And then they get to a next phase where they're 12 or 13 and they're feeling like they want their independence from you, and it hurts a little bit. And then there's places like, well, I'm going to college now, or I'm going to university, or I'm moving out, or I've got a girlfriend now. You're not number one in my life anymore. Now, if you have a partner, a life partner, and this is happening to you, you can feel like, you know what? Okay, what are we going to do next with our life? We've given everything to these kids. What are we going to do next in our life? Or if you, at least you have someone to talk about it with. If you have nobody, if you're a single parent, it gets super confusing, because they were your everything. You've given everything to them, and now they're off doing their own thing. And it can get super confusing. But I will say, either single or in a partnership with the Bhagavatam, it gives you a framework how to experience that. What could be a tragedy, it could be a tragic life event. Like, my children are moving out. I have to redefine what my contribution is to the world now. And I see people like, some people's heads are really spinning. Some people have a little bit more of a grasp. And I feel like practicing bhakti, it's helped me through these stages, because as a parent, you have full control of a little toddler. And then slowly and slowly, you're letting go of that control, to the point where you realize, like, actually, I only had partial control. I was never the controller. It's such a purifying lesson. So, sorry for that it was a slight squirrel.
No. Well, I think there are a lot of things came out in that side. Not really a squirrel, but yeah, the fact that from time to time we have to I guess reset what our mission is. Like you're a person, you have this broader mission, which is ultimately you see yourself as a servant of God, the root of all existence, and through that serving every living being. And within that broader context, you have other services or other purposes, other reasons that you get out of bed in the morning that are in that context. How you care for your children is one of them. This podcast is one of them. You have different ones, and they're going to change from time to time. They're going to change, and each one of them, you're going to have to let go of at a certain point. You own it for a while, and then you let go of it. So we have these temporary dharmas that we serve, but we serve them all in the context of that eternal dharma. And if through bhakti yoga you get that template, that construct, that layout, if you understand, that's how life works. I have this overriding spiritual purpose that's shared by every living being. We don't all realize it, but we all share it. And within that, I have these temporary roles to play in that in context of that broader principle. Then all of these things, whether it's raising children, doing a job, some personal responsibility that you have, it's there to awaken that eternal connection with God. You see it all in that context. It becomes so meaningful. Otherwise, it may have no meaning to you, or you think life is meaningless.
Right. We get to this point of frustration, throw our hands in the air, like, what is the purpose of all this
What is the
anyway?
purpose? It
It get
comes, it goes, it's gone. It's
Yeah, you need to frame it out. Thank you,
frame it.
Bhakti.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Lord Krishna.
Thank you, George Bernard Shaw.
Thank you, George Bernard Shaw, especially. All right. Let's dive into the sweet, sweet Srimad Bhagavatam.
Let's do it.
We were reading last night the Bhagavatam before we went to bed. Me and Mallory and Patrick and Mara. Akrura entering Vrindavan. What an incredible.
Yeah.
Every verse was like, Okay.
Narayanam.
Rayanam namaskritya naram chaiva devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurumandatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet.
Right there at the lotus feet, right there, huh?
Yep. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 12, Text 12.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we could go back to 11 because there's an important aspect that we didn't discuss that's really essential here.
Yeah, that was a big one yesterday. All right, text 11. What then is the ultimate truth? The answer is that non-dual knowledge is the ultimate truth. It is devoid of the contamination of material qualities. It gives us liberation. It is the one without a second, all pervading and beyond imagination. The first realization of that knowledge is Brahman. The Paramatma, the supersoul, is realized by the yogis who try to see him without grievance. This is the second stage of realization. Finally, full realization of the same supreme knowledge is realized in the Supreme Person. All learned scholars describe the Supreme Person as Vasudeva, the cause, Brahman, Paramatma, and others.
Okay. So let's just going right to the beginning of that. When it says, because he was just saying, Jadabharta was explaining to Maharaj Rahugana, the king. He was saying, you were talking like a fool before. You're and honestly, to most people, it's gonna be like, what do you mean? He was just talking about what is. He's saying, I'm the king, and these guys are the Pelican carriers, and isn't that a fact? No, on one very superficial level, that's a fact. But a deeper thinker sees that the material elements are shifting. One person is in the body of a Pelican carrier one moment, and in the next moment, he's in the body of the king. We're shifting these positions. When we identify with these temporary shapes that are given certain names, we don't see deeply into life. We don't see the truth, the deeper truth that's behind it all. What then is the ultimate truth then? Okay, then if that's not the truth, then what is the truth? And he says here, the answer is that non-dual knowledge is the ultimate truth. Now, what does he mean by that? When non-dual means it's not, like he was giving this, an example was shared of like saying like there's earth, like clay, right? And you take clay and you could shape it into so many different shapes.
I'm going to use this analogy more. You make a duck, right? You make a duck. You make a little man. You crumble it up, make it into a ball, right?
Little shapes, yeah.
You make a little car,
Yeah.
You roll it up again, make another little animal.
Or you could say, you can make a spoon, you can make a plate, you can make a cup, and we give them different names. This one we call a spoon, this one we call a cup, this one we call a plate, but really all they are is earth, and they only take that shape for a moment, and then they're back into the earth. You can see this in India, right, where they actually make clay cups that you use only one time, right? Like you go to a
Right.
big feast in India, they got like hundreds of people lined up. Everyone's got a clay cup, and at the end, everybody throws those clay cups in a big pile, and they just break and they go right back into the earth and become clay again. You know,
What a genius system, isn't it?
it's the right way to live.
First time I saw one of those Indian clay cups, I was like, these people are geniuses.
They
Why
didn't make a
are we
plastic.
doing
They didn't
this?
make a clay
Why
cup.
are we doing this?
And so okay, then the answer is non-dual knowledge. In other words, it's the earth that's non-dual. These different shapes and names are where the duality lies. But he goes deeper and he begins to speak of what is that non-dual. Because this is what I love about Bhagavatam. As we get to know it more and more, I suggest everybody listening, make learning Srimad Bhagavatam your lifelong project. It's not like you're ever going to fully know it. And that's because it's unlimited, but we can know it deeper and deeper and deeper and understand it and see the connections more clearly. And when I hear this verse, in my mind, there's like a little chart is laid out. And and in that chart, it's connecting this verse to another. This is text 11 of the 5th canto's 12th chapter. But in my mind, it's connecting to the 11th verse of the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, right? Canto 1, chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service. The entire, it's like from this chapter, which is just laying out what is reality and what is the practice of Bhakti Yoga, the entire Bhagavatam stems from it. We can take any part of the Bhagavatam and draw it back to a verse from this chapter because it just goes step by step by step how to understand truth. And there it's describing that how one's life should be dedicated to understanding the absolute truth. And then the logical question would be, well, what is the absolute truth? And then you get this very famous verse, Vedanti tat tattva vidas, tattvam yajnanam advayam, brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabjate, right? Which is describing what was described in this verse, that learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance, right? Again, this non-dual substance, Brahman Paramama Bhagavan, meaning that, and this is something that Raghunath and I have learned, over the course of time, right? If someone asks you, okay, you're into this thing now, you're into this Hare Krishna thing, or into this Bhakti thing, or this yoga thing, what are you into? Well, what do you believe about God? Well, if you just come out and say straight off, God is this blue boy that runs around and plays the flute, and they're
usually not a good opening gambit.
It's not the best opening gambit. They won't have the frame of reference to. It will seem silly. It will seem childish. It'll seem kitschy. It won't seem serious. It'll seem immature to them. Where you got this little cartoon idea
Cartoon
about
god. You got a little cartoon god.
I remember it was I had a nice friend of mine that I used to practice yoga with down at Ashtanga Yoga, New York, on Broome Street. I met him in Mumbai one time. He was a brilliant guy, really nice guy. He's like a recording engineer and a photographer, a professional photographer, high-level professional photographer. So high level.
How high level was he?
That he took a famous photograph of the Pope from behind when the Pope is speaking to everyone from up in that window that he stands in, and he's looking down. Yeah. But they don't allow people in there, but they allowed him in there. They don't allow just any.
That's high level.
Camera. That's very high level. He does photos for National Geographic, and he does a lot of big famous bands. I won't go into names, but the huge bands.
All right.
So he stayed in Mumbai for a few days. It was at the time of the Flower Festival. This must have been about 12 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was coming early in the morning every day to the temple, and we were spending time together, and he was fascinated by it. He was going around with his recording equipment, and during the japa session he was like recording, and he was hearing Radhanath Swami speak and just getting blown away by it.
Anything but sitting down and chanting japa. Like I'm walking around, right?
No, he was doing that too. He's also a person that had like a really certain kind of, he's a French guy too. And so at a certain point he sat down with me and he said, it's in a real European way, you know, like, but isn't this, I can't do a French accent, but like, but isn't this idea like of God being a person, isn't this like an immature idea? Right? Like, it was just like our minds have been trained. Like, haven't we evolved past that idea? Isn't that an idea from way in the past that like humanity has kind of evolved past? And
yeah,
yeah,
we definitely have some prejudice against God as a being, and we've done, because there's been some wrongdoing with that theory.
Yeah, and it's been presented in simplistic ways.
Yeah, and we want to rebuff from it. We want, well, you know, let's just see it, instead of me and God as this divine chastiser, how about we're all God? It sounds like that's more acceptable. How about we're all God, and God is an energy, and you can't put a name on him, and no culture owns him, and we agree.
To some extent, yeah.
We agree, but he's also blue.
Well, that's the point. That but that you've added there indicates that the Bhakti yoga conception of God is broad. It encompasses more than just God as a person. It encompasses more than just we are all God. It encompasses both, right? Mm-hmm. And still more. So if someone asks, well, what's your conception of God in this tradition? A really good way to approach it is right here with what Jadabharta is explaining to the king. How do we explain who God is or what God is? God is one non-dual source manifesting in three ways. You know, pervading everything, inside and outside of everything, but most intimately known as a person. Now you're giving them something to chew on. Like, okay, that doesn't sound immature. Whatever it is, truth or not, this is a more sophisticated idea than just God as some big faceless and judge entity, right? Or even God as a blue boy running around playing a flute, right? Now you've given them that boy playing the flute is permeating every atom within this universe, and at the same time, every atom within the universe exists within him. This is like, oh, paradoxes, and you know, but there's an incredibly fascinating theology here, sophisticated theology here. You know,
that great intellectuals have studied, pondered over, tossed back and forth. That's why when the Cro-Mags were preaching to me in front of CBGBs about Krishna, this is when I first hit it, and you know, the Cro-Mags were preaching to me about Krishna and about spirituality and about you're not the body and stuff like that. And I was just like taking it all in. I was like, okay, are these guys going to hit me, or are they just trying to give me God? Or because you never knew what you're going to get with the Cro-Mags.
Suckering me here, they just pulling me in.
And I was like, okay, all right, okay. I was like, okay, wait a second. Okay, God, we're eternal beings. I mean, basically, they're dropping the absolute truth on me in the middle of, you know, the Bowery, you know, and I'm just sort of like nodding. Okay. Then I walked away from them, turned. And Kevin, their guitar player, Paris, who is not into Krishna, he pulled me aside. They're all like sort of taking the turn with me.
Don't fall into this.
He's like, listen.
One's pulling you this way, the other one's pulling you that way.
You understand. And I like Paris too. You know, I like Paris also. And he said, listen, do you understand what these guys are saying? Do you understand what they're telling you here? You know, I see you nodding over there like you accept all this stuff. Don't you understand? You're saying
go there.
They are saying the absolute truth, the origin of everything, the very, very like fountainhead of the universe is a tiny blue cowherd boy. Is this the most insane thing you've ever heard? He's just trying to reframe it to me so I didn't just like bite the bait.
Right.
And I was, but in my mind, and I looked up to those guys, I looked up to him, but in my mind, I thought, well, maybe, why not? Like, why not? And I think you got to get to that point when you study this philosophy. We're all God. Maybe, why not? God is separate than us also. Maybe, why not? God's blue cowherd boy. God is Lord Ram. God's half man, half lion. Maybe. What do I know?
Okay. All right.
I think you got to get to that point of, I don't know.
That's
It's
being
humbling.
objective.
It's
That's being
humbling
objective.
to accept I don't know everything, and I can't know everything because my senses are limited. I can't have perfect knowledge with imperfect senses. That's a huge step for a lot of people to get to, because we like to get to this point where, like, I know, I fact checked this. I did the science. What do we know? What can we actually know?
Particularly about subjects that are clearly beyond our tiny perspective.
And when you blend the ego in with this I know thing, it becomes really problematic. I know. It's definitely like this. And you guys are completely wrong. And those guys they were saying he's wrong, they're wrong. All right.
Now here's something from the commentary to that very important text. Again, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 11, wherein this framework is laid out. Oh, the Supreme Absolute Truth, or God, that one non-dual substance manifests in three different shapes, you could say, or three different manifestations: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman meaning all. We'll read about it right here. Prabhupada writes in the commentary that Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. Right? They're made of the same energy, right? Of the same quality, in meaning that they're all eternal, right? They're all blissful. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman, right? As divine energy by the students of the Upanishads, right? The Jnana Yogis.
So they're saying it is the same thing, but that's how they understand it.
This is one person's perspective. Yeah. If you have certain, I mean, we could read into this more, right?
Like, Prabhu, you could say it about our farm, Super Soul Farm. You get on Google Maps and you see it from above. This is Super Soul Farm. You get in the living room in front of the altar. This is Super Soul Farm, right? You're in the basement, right? It's a little dusty. This is it's all the same. It's just a different perspective, a different vantage point of the same thing.
Oh, exactly.
That's a good explanation. That's a reasonable, mature explanation.
It's a common one that's coming from way back. Like generally they would say a mountain, right? You look at a mountain from a distance, it just looks like a gray mass.
Sure.
Right? As you get closer,
got some trees.
There's variety there. There's trees. Yeah. And then you get to go closer.
Trees.
Yeah, you meet the animals.
Come meet the squirrels.
Come meet Dr. Doolittle in there. He's talking to the animals.
Yeah.
So okay, he continues. The same substance, that one same substance, is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads. We are all that God. We are all that energy, all, that divine light. As localized Paramatma by the yogis, right? That as a form of Lord Vishnu within the heart, that's monitoring our thoughts and our experiences, that's ready to speak to us when we are ready to hear, that's coordinating the karma of every living being according to their previous activities and their desires, right? The Paramatma, same substance. And as Bhagavan, the personal form by the devotees, right? By the Bhakti yogis. So you had the Jnanis, the Ashtanga yogis, and the Bhakti yogis all described. They all have a different vantage point on this one non-dual transcendental substance. So Prabhupada continues, in other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, that personal form, is the last word in the absolute truth. They're all absolute truth. But that is the most, when that's revealed, everything is revealed. He says, Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead. The impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun's rays are to the sun God. right? This is Vedic thought, that the sun is not just a gaseous ball, right? That there's a being in there, just like within every living body, there's a being that's in there perceiving. There's a being within the sun. There's a soul
You
within
think
the
there's a being in the sun?
sun.
Come on. A little sun man, Kastuba?
Well, now, in any case, Prabhupada, he wraps this up by saying, and this is good. This is good. He says, less intelligent students of either of the above schools, and this is important for everyone to understand, including the Bhakti yogis. Less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization, their own perspective. But those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. Okay, so even for, in other words, our theology, the Bhakti Yoga theology, is handed down through Bhagavad Gita, is handed down through Srimad Bhagavatam, is handed down in various Vaishnava lineages, different various Bhakti Yoga lineages, is particularly in this lineage, it's very focused and clarified as that we are God, we are the same as God, and we are different from God. We are both, and it's a mature perspective, right?
Yes.
It's not just like God is great and we are practically nothing. It's not we are God and there is nothing else. It's a mature, balanced view that we are made of the energy of God. We have the nature of God. We are eternal. We're blissful by nature. We're knowing by nature. We've lost touch with it. And you know what? We couldn't have lost touch with it unless we were also different from God. Right? Because that would be indicating something is more powerful than God. So we are both. And as Prabhupada phrases it here, perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. This is where, if you want to explain to someone, what do you believe? This is a good place. What do you believe about God? You can present this. And once you do that, once you open up the mind a little bit to, okay, I'm not dealing with a child here. I'm not dealing with some mindless fanatic who's bought into some they're clueless, buying into some mythology. It's absurd. Now that you've opened their mind up a little, you can begin to talk about the personal form of God with more nuance, with more sophistication, right? You can begin to talk about rasa, like the whole reason why he has this form is so that you can experience the deepest forms of love. Okay? That's rational, right?
I think when you and I think it's important for everybody, they have to actually pull this stuff apart and really think deeply about it, because you could listen to this class, even if you're sort of like, I believe all this stuff, I completely believe it. And then you get caught up on a little thing that you might just accept, but then someone challenges you, really, the sun's a person. Tell me about that. And then you got to analyze these things. And one way I used to explain this is, just like we were reading the other day, is like our body is no different in one sense than the earth. We got like a body of salt water within our body. We got some heat in the body. There's some fire. There's some earth matter. These things are always changing. So are we just dead matter? We say no. We say no, we are not dead matter. There's a spark of life animating this basic earth, this earth being.
It's alive.
It's alive. And the mosquitoes aren't thinking, oh, there's an earth being here. The mosquitoes are just sucking on my body. They're coming, sucking, drinking, flying away. And in the same way, the earth itself, the earth itself,
we're like the mosquitoes.
We're like the mosquitoes, and we're sucking the resources of this earth. I'm not thinking, oh, I'm sucking it from Mother Bhumi, the earth, or Surya, or Soma. These are all the names of the planets. We're just thinking there's some glob of
Resources.
thinking about that. Yeah, resource, and we're going to extract the minerals from it, or the oil from it, or any type of resource, and we're not thinking about it
The
as
food
a
from
living
it.
entity.
Yeah.
And what's happened in the same way a mosquito doesn't think like, well, I gotta get some blood, so I'm gonna go after Raghunath. I hope he's not having a bad day because I'm about to get him right on his back where he can't swat me. But they're not thinking like that. They're just taking. So we are those taking parasites also. And
Yeah.
as much as we can't understand that the earth is actually a being, we have to see it in perspective of a mosquito sucking our own blood, not understanding that we have a life, we have a family, we have a friendship, we have thoughts. And so the yogis understand this Fibonacci spiral. Things that are so much greater than us are very similar to us, and even things tiny, right? Because how
Yeah.
many, in the same way, I'm a parasite on the earth. How many parasites are living on my body? They're just feeding off of me as well. And it goes smaller and smaller and smaller. That's the Fibonacci spiral here.
Excellent, Rogan. Yeah, what you're saying is so important. In other words, yeah, they'll be telling me that the Earth is a living being, or there's a god, a goddess, is some goddess or something like that. But what you're saying is, slow down.
It's
Step
rational.
back. Yeah, step back. Let's talk rational. You know, the reason why it might seem irrational to a lot of people is just because they're so out of touch with nature. Because like the Native Americans, who weren't operating with books of philosophy and everything like that being handed down, but because they're living so close to the earth, you know, they could understand so much about what's written there in these philosophical texts going back so many centuries in India. You know, they could recognize the earth as a living being. They could recognize Paramatma. They could, you know, that they call the Great Spirit that's inside everyone, but everyone's inside it. That's what the word Vasudeva, the word Vasudeva was used in this verse that we just read, right? It wound up saying all learned scholars describe the Supreme Person as Vasudeva, right? Vasudeva, it literally means, you know, Vasa means to dwell. And Vasudeva means the God that dwells within everyone's heart, and the God within whom everyone dwells. Vasudeva. The Native Americans, they totally got that.
It's so crazy how we try to claim God as a human. It's for humans. God's for humans only. What is everything else? They're just dead. It's very easy to kill and exploit when you see them as not part of God as well.
And therefore they respected the earth. Like we don't respect the earth. Our so-called advanced society, with all of its science and all of its technology, has lost touch with this very simple, basic idea. I mean, I could say, on one hand, I could say it's very simple and basic. It is, but it's also an evolved idea because we're so far from it, right? To respect the earth as a living being, right? That you can't. That it's not a dead thing that you just take from, that doesn't experience anything. No, it's alive. It needs to be respected. We talked some weeks ago about how the Brahmanas in South India, how before they take their first step coming out of bed in the morning, right, they offer prayer to the goddess of the earth before they put their feet on her, right? Native Americans, they were also seen like this. They were recognizing Paramatma. This isn't childish. This is insightful.
This is so deep that you're taking nothing for granted. Yeah. Isn't that what the real lack in our society right now too? We take everything for granted. There's no appreciation. I mean, if we could just turn that up a little bit, it would change everything.
And you look at, like, you take your Native American storytelling, it's going to glorify this kind of insight, and what it does is it opens people's minds to it. Whereas what we get glorified in our culture is a kind of callousness, you know, a kind of like, you know, we glorify too much, way too much, far, far, far too much, the idea of glorifying the exploiter, you know, the person that like doesn't take any crap and cuts their place out in this world and drives the fancier car and wears the more expensive watch and you know, has sex with more people. We get that as like the ideal. You go to the Native American traditions, no, they have a very different idea. You go to the Bhakti tradition, a very different idea. These were more evolved societies, ultimately, because they had a clear idea of what truth was, even though they were living in teepees, or even though they were, just dressed in dhotis,
I'm ready to live in a teepee.
Are you? You used to have a teepee.
Yes, I am. Miss Mara, she's like, are you?
Yeah, I don't know if you are.
Oh, you said, are you?
Yeah, I said, are you? That was me. All right.
All right, let's wind this up now. It's 6:58.
Yeah.
Well, you got some good takeaways there, Miss Mara, sitting shotgun here with her knitting needles. She knits in the F-150.
I do. All right. I do have some good takeaways today.
What you got?
Don't become a little clod of ailments and grievances.
Yeah.
Don't become a clod.
Clod. Don't be a
Just don't
clod.
wear that shirt. Just don't be a clod.
The world is not devoted to making you happy.
Well, we're not supposed to think that it is.
The world's, yeah.
Like, what is in the world? Yeah. Okay.
Purpose, not just survival.
Okay.
Yeah, not just survival. Let's get some.
Or
why.
exploitation.
Thank you, Bhakti, for framing it out.
Thank you, Bhakti. Thank you, sweet little Krishna. Let's just say
cute
that.
little-
Let's that
sweet
be our
little-
mantra today. Thank you, sweet little Krishna.
Sweet
Whenever
little
something happens,
8
good or
pounds,
bad
16
today.
ounce Krishna.
Thank you, sweet little Krishna.
Make learning Bhagavatam a lifelong project.
That good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Deeper and
blue-
deeper.
Yeah. The blue boy playing a flute permeates every atom.
Okay.
Think about the beings behind the resources we exploit.
Think about it, Raghunath.
Think.
Take nothing for granted.
Take no crap.
That was a little different, Raghunath, but okay.
Yeah. Stop glorifying the exploiters.
Yeah, well, that's
Stop listening to the exploited. How about that?
That's a little different.
Mara's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
It's a band.
You know what's exploited? Picture Big Mohawk.
Picture a giant mohawk and some guy cursing
Dyed
at
red.
you and whipping a microscope.
Scottish guy screaming at you with a huge mohawk.
Scottish guy. I became friends with him.
Did you? Did you do some big festivals with them or something?
I think we did some festivals.
And
Waddy?
They're still wrecking hotel rooms. It's
Yeah.
okay. We're good.
I
Okay.
think
what
he had
else?
like a stroke on stage like a couple years back or something. like that,
What?
right? Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I
They're
heard
still
that.
going though.
Still going.
And
Yeah.
we are the taking parasites also.
We are the parasites.
Hmm.
Sounds like a punk rock song from 1978. We're the
Sounds like the name of a
parasites.
band with a parasite. Yeah, give
We're
it
the
that British
parasites
accent.
from less Glastonbury. From Birmingham. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're the parasites. But we're good parasites. We want to be good parasites. Thanks for joining us here. I'm really inspired by the regular Zoomers. And I'm also inspired by the anonymous others out there listening every day. We don't even know where they are. Nityananda Chandra says that's a subhuman song.